Radio Raheem with Robert Garcia. This is my first time at your new gym. What are we calling this? Boxing Academy East or what?
Riverside. Robert Garcia's Boxing Academy, Riverside, yeah.
Well, just like your other academy, it's got a cozy feel, very homey. It feels like Brandon's really at home here. How is this facility working out for you? You training here more now than in Oxnard?
You know what? I spend the mornings in Oxnard and then the afternoons through nights here in Riverside. So it's mostly here in Riverside. I'm in Oxnard in the mornings from 9 in the morning to 12 p.m. I got most of my Russians training in Oxnard. We walk some Russians, Lithuanians, and different countries, but we all call them Russians. So to us, they're all Russians. So we got those guys over there, and then at 2 is when Brandon trains. At 4 o'clock, I got another group, and at 6, I get another group, and then at 8 o'clock, I get the last group when Chavez is training.
Well, you not only have a Russian, but you got a Mexican Russian, Gradovic. We seen him today. You know, he's looking bruised up, but he was, he's a victor in that fight. Talk to me about why that fight was so tough for him.
You know what? It's not that it was a tough fight. It's just Gradovic already keep having in his mind, because he was telling us in the corner, I could knock him out. And that's all. We're not looking for the knockout Gradovic. We need the and we talked to him already. Me and Marcos talked to him after the fight. We told him, look, we don't want to. You don't need to be knocking guys out like Igis, Kovalevskis is, or those are all his teammates. Alexander Vosdik or Lomachenko or Kovalev, who's a really good friend of his. You don't fight like them. Your fight is the way you beat Billy Dib the first time, the way you stop Billy Dib the second time, by throwing a lot of punches and staying busy and not giving your opponents room to breathe. That's his style. But for some reason, he wants to knock guys out with one punch, and that's just not going to happen. So we're trying to get into his head that he's got to go back to the way he was fighting. I think if he would have fought the way he was fighting a couple years ago, I think he would have probably stopped this guy. But hey, it's a learning experience. We got the win. Now we're planning on maybe getting him down to 122 and get a good run at 122.
Now 122, that seems like he may drop down because it gives him more power, more ability to knock him out. This is obviously a guy with a Mexican style and a Russian attitude. At 122, what kind of fights are you looking for? Who's got a target on their back?
Look, for that, he's got his promoter, Top Rank, and he's got his manager, Igis. So I don't get involved in those decisions. I respect manager, promoter. They make their decisions. My decisions in the gym, they don't get involved either. So that's the way we keep it. I don't want to get in nobody's business. But whoever it is, 122 has some good fights. There's a lot of fighters that Top Rank promote that could be good opponents for Gradovic.
You talk about telling Gradovic what kind of fight he needs to fight, where his advantages are, sometimes counter his mentality. You've got Brandon Rios stepping in the ring with Timothy Bradley. That can be a tricky fight stylistically as well. What are you telling Brandon to prepare for? Are you trying to get him to fight a certain kind of fight against Timothy Bradley?
Look, Brandon just needs to be Brandon. The Brandon, people that remember Brandon from earlier in his career, the Brandon that beat Peterson, the Brandon that stopped Acosta, the Brandon that we've seen against Alvarado the third time. That's what we need in Brandon to be able to beat Timothy Bradley. We need the best Brandon out there. We can't have a Brandon with an injury, or we can't have a Brandon whose head was a little bit too big already and wasn't training as hard and wasn't doing things right. Right now Brandon's training hard. He's motivated, and it looks like so far things are good. We're gonna have the Brandon that was motivated, that was hungry to become something big in boxing.
He's showing us a heck of a workout here today. How many rounds was he on the mitts today, just for the media?
Look, Brandon loves to work out, and today was less than what we normally do. He probably did like 8 rounds, and he's still training. Normally, Brandon loves to spar a lot. The days that we spar, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, he does at least 10 to 12 rounds every day. That's just the way he likes it, and I like it too, because that if he doesn't do it, if I tell him not to do it, then he doesn't feel like he did his work complete. And then after after sparring, he still wants to do another 6 or 8 rounds of mitts. He goes back to the bags, double end bags, speed bags. So he does a good 2.5 hours of training every day. And then we also have the conditioning training in the morning. Daryl Hudson is doing a great job, tremendous job. So Brandon's going to be in great shape for this fight.
And lastly, Robert, with a committed Brandon Rios, a guy who's dedicated to his craft, knowing that Timothy Bradley can be drawn in a certain kind of fights, you know, you think that Brandon can take the lead and make Timothy fight the kind of fight Brandon wants to fight?
We have to do that. That's what we have to do, and I think we could do it. I think we're going to be able to do it. You know, Brandon knows the importance of this fight. You know, he wins this fight, and, you know, Cameron Duncan has already told me we don't want, Brandon doesn't need to know stuff like this because Brandon's focused on Timothy Bradley. And if you ask Brandon, he doesn't want to talk about anything else but Bradley. But Cameron has great plans for the future. You know, Top Rank has already told him what's possible after that. And if we win, well, you know, Brandon's back on top with some very, very nice paydays, big fights. And in this business now stage of his career, we're looking for those fights. You know, we can't look for, let's try to defend our title against the #1 contender, or we don't even know who it is. For us, it's gonna be whatever makes more sense, and that's Cameron's job.
You know, the boxing fans love to speculate. If Brandon is successful against Timothy Bradley, what kind of names have been thrown out there? Is Canelo on that list?
You know, yeah, Canelo has been mentioned, you know, but Canelo has a very dangerous fight against Cotto. You know, Canelo, that fight's not easy. So we don't know if Cotto's able to beat Canelo. We don't know if even Cotto will be available because of, you know, Cotto just left Top Rank, so we don't really know what would happen there. We're trying to just focus on this fight. Cameron has mentioned maybe a Cotto possibility. There's other welterweights that Top Rank has. There's also junior welterweights that Top Rank has. You know, that maybe at a catch weight or something. You know, there's some fighters out there that would make a lot of sense. So, you know, we just got to go through Bradley. You know, the fight's not easy, but Brandon's motivated to do it, and that's Cameron's job after.
How low do you think Brandon can go weight-wise? What kind of catch weight can he make?
Nah, look, I'm not saying we're going to do it, but if the offer was there and Brandon's able to become world champion at welterweight, then we could do, you know, a 2-3 pound, you know, under 147 to do a catch weight. There's some good names that Top Rank has that would make sense for us, and why not? I think Brandon could easily do it. You know, Brandon's been training hard, been dieting good. His last fight, he had breakfast the day of the weigh-in. So I think this time we're gonna have the same, you know, be in the same position. So 2 or 3 pounds won't be much for Brandon to lose.
Thanks, Robert Garcia. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Great gym. You got Brandon looking great. We're going to see you, you know, November 6th and November 7th in Las Vegas. Radio Raheem with Robert Garcia.